Hey everybody, welcome back to Sage Thyme. I'm Lillian. This is your reading today for the placement of the constellation of Virgo in your chart, whether that be house, sun, other planets, asteroids. You know the deal. You know how to apply it, and if it's not your jam in terms of astrology, then however this message strikes you is exactly what it's meant for you to observe, work with, and I mean, it's your process, right? You're here. Thank you for being here. I'm here. We're together. I've got my fur babies. Well, I've got the one on the one side. I think the other one, she's taking a nap, the kitty. But we've got the pup with us today, so he's always present. Okay, so getting into your energy, some good things. One thing was I didn't expect to pull a book like I did for yesterday's Leo reading. And as I was prepping for your reading, I was promptly spun around to go back and look at the books. The one that popped out was a book on the history of mysticism and alchemy. Now, it's one of those bookstore holiday gift books, right? So it's small and compact and briefly summarized on all the things, right? And I did what I do, and I popped a page open and read a few things, and I thought, no, that's not it. And I instantly heard, not this book, and the book shut. That doesn't mean not that book for you ever, or not those themes for you ever. But here's what's interesting. The book that I was called to is one of my favorite books. I don't even know why I said that word. It's like picking a song or a band. I love all the books, or most of them anyways, many of them. Being corrected like in the moment. Here we go. So the book is called Somato Emotional Release. Let's bring that into focus. And Beyond by Dr. John Upledger. Let's bring that all the way in. All right. And so this is not a book necessarily of poetry, but it is about mysticism. Ah, there it is. And it is about alchemy. I love it when the things unfold during the recordings, right? So Dr. John Upledger and his institute, it's one of the places that I did my training, and him as a person, as an individual, and his philosophy, the way his brain thinked and his approach to wholeness made him very much a mentor for me. I never got to work with him specifically. I worked with many of his predecessors, and I've always had that wonderful resonance. So I thought, okay, Virgo, we're getting into a bit of the science with the spirit and the philosophy, bringing in Virgo sign opposition Pisces, the mysticism. And so I opened the book, and the page that I came to, the first sentence I read, which I'm going to read this paragraph and a half here in a second, I went, oh, wow. I mean, we're talking about electrons and their behaviors based on scientific observation, very Virgoian, as well as, what was the other thing that came up? Oh, I opened it and I started reading the sentences. At first, I didn't know what he was talking about, and you'll see that. But I instantly felt this almost swarm, this influx of Fae energy coming in. So we'll be working with Brian Froud's Fae cards today. They're here. They love it. And in fact, they said, ring the bell, ring the bell. They love the bell. And we know Fae. They don't subscribe to human games of good and evil. They see and understand intimately the many layers of all the things that are far more complex than that paradigm that humans play. And so they can be interpreted as mischievous, but they always serve love, right? They always serve life and cycles of life, which includes death and rebirth, alchemy, and all the mysticism in between. So let's get to it. We'll begin with reading this. Yeah, we'll begin with that, and then I'll go into some of the other things that came up for me during my meditation before we start with the cards that came up for me for your reading. Everybody's in a hurry to speak and have a conversation here, so let me find an angle where my light. I have my contacts in, and not the best to see when I have contacts in. Anywho's, here we are. So the first sentence that popped up is, that is, they travel through the mist inside the chamber and leave a trail visible to the human observer. How very mysticism, and yet. On the other hand, if we shoot electrons through the same slit at a photographic film, the results suggest the waves are striking the film. From whence the argument about whether electrons are particles or waves comes. This apparent discrepancy regarding the nature of the electron raises the question in the minds of some theoretical physicists about whether the electron might be both a particle and a wave. Depending upon how we choose to observe it, the next question is whether the electron would behave as either or neither a particle or a wave, if there were no observer. Perhaps the electron has a consciousness that understands our puzzlement and our need to understand. I'm going to read that again. Perhaps the electron has a consciousness that understands our puzzlement and our need to understand. The electron may wish to accommodate us. Thus, if we decide to look for a particle, the electrons act like a particle. If we are looking for a wave, it gives us a wave. Sometimes the electrons may be in playful or contrary moods and behave in a way opposite from that which we expect. This seems to happen fairly often. One experiment's results are opposite from another. Are electrons mini people? Some show you what you want to see, and others, being contrary, show you just the opposite of what you expect. If electrons are performing for the experimenter in the way that the experimenter expects them to perform, what are the electrons doing when no experiment is in progress? Is there an electron behavioral phenomenon when no one is watching? Or does our watching trigger the behavior? And then it goes on more into technicalities of physicists' experiments. But I love the philosophical aspect of the science here that brings in, and he's doing it, Dr. Upledger's doing it very intentionally. And electrons, remember, are a component of an atom, so much smaller than something like a cell, and we've got billions or trillions of them in our body cells. And electrons are everywhere because atoms are everywhere. So atoms being so minute, and electrons just being a small, even more minute particle of an atom. And here Dr. Upledger's talking about the idea of electrons behaving under observation, scientific observation, in different ways, both in unexpected ways or contrary ways, and in, at times, expected ways. So he poses the question, is there a consciousness to it? Which then, of course, begs us to consider what is consciousness. So let's just put that question a little bit to the side for now. We'll set it on the corner of the table, and I'll let you unpack that more on your own, which I have a feeling, Virgo, you're here, whether you're a Virgo sun or not, you're here. So this is a question that in some sense or another, whether using a scientific model or otherwise, you have pondered this. You have contemplated consciousness and what it is, and even down to the particleization, because everything is a composition of more and more particles. And us human beings, of course, we're a ginormous, really, to the eyes of a particle, if there were such a thing, the awareness of a particle, we are infinite conglomerates of particles. We are a universe, right? You hear me talk about that all the time. And I hear the Fae coming in as I was reading that. I kept giggling as I was reading it to you because I kept hearing them say, and that sums it up. And that just sums it all up. They're like looking at me, looking at you, going, how do you not get this? It's so obvious. It says everything right there in that one paragraph and sentence. They are sticklers for accuracy. That's why I keep being corrected. Fae, as playful as they are, and I want to find a different word for mischievous. They like it because it's fun to play with, and it tricks the mind of humans and makes us think, oh, it must be bad or it must be good, and it's inert. It's just a pattern, really, an approach. And sometimes it's an approach that is the only one that works for any given individual. Virgos being more by standardized description, more compartmentalized, task oriented, step by step, where of course their opposition constellation, that Pisces, is that vast expanse, almost swallowing a person's consciousness whole, because the consciousness is exploding too and spreading and shattering out into the whole. And so Virgo, when it is, especially a strong Virgo placement, when it is working with its opposition, which is true for any sign, and working in a way that is complementary to one another, using Virgo and Pisces as an example, then we're able to do things like bringing in that vast mysticism, almost drowning in the sea of the cosmos. Well, not even almost, at times. It can be a very big experience. And Virgo pulls that in. Remember, Virgo works also with the rulership of Mercury, like Gemini. And Virgo has an ability to pull that in, that vast consciousness, and compartmentalize it into a structure, so to speak, whether it's an activity, a way of thinking and seeing things, a model of what is true and what isn't. What's important for Virgo, especially if Virgo is struggling with some more dense aspects, is to recognize that the model of perception, the model of how an individual, how the self is observing and seeing and interpreting the world around them, isn't necessarily the right thing. It doesn't mean it's wrong, but Virgo, it's really supportive for a Virgo to remember that one perspective and analysis and truth, even in a broad sense or a very provable sense, is really only one facet of the multidimensional, multi-spectrum diamond, cut diamond, so to speak. So, and that can be a challenge for Virgo. So I think that's part of what's playing in, is that perhaps there is a part of you, wherever Virgo is in your chart, let's say it's in, you're not a Virgo sun, but it's in the first house, the house of I am, self-identification, self-personification. That can be really challenging, because if the self, normally the first house is Aries, the I am. So if Virgo's in that first house and it's saying, I am what a part of what I think this world is all about, then Virgo loses the plot, which is so much more big. So much more big. All right, let's pull some cards from Brian Froud's Fairy Oracle. As always, the materials that I use in these readings, cards and books and otherwise, are listed in the description, as well as the authors, creators. So you can always find that there. The cards are flying, so I'll be right back. Excellent. Okay, so we've got the Singers of Healing and the Sage. Pull these up together. How perfect that the Sage is coming through on a Virgo reading. Whoops, I gotta get my head out of that. The camera's not really... There we go. I'm just having a time. All right, well, we'll figure this out. So, the singers of healing. Singers are, the Fae don't like to be interpreted as angels because there's too many distorted stories around that, but they are beings of light and fluctuating form. They're a consciousness of many consciousnesses, just like you and I. They're made up of many consciousnesses. And the singers, each one cultivates its consciousness, choosing and deciding and integrating which ways of thinking and being that they choose to be. This one in particular being a consciousness of healing, the singer of healing. And so over eons and millennia and on and on and on, this particular image, representation of a singer of healing. I'm being stopped here. Well, I mean, obviously it's pointing to you. It's pointing to the energies that you're working with, that you are working at. Here, it's showing up as the sage. You are working as co-creating yourself, your human self, as well as your higher self, the energetic self of the singer, in the archetype of the healer. But more here with the sage. The sage is the one who is the seer between realms. You can see that with his left eye. Yeah, good. His left eye blinded to the human world so that through that he can see into the other realms. This is a masculine energy, very masculine. There's no bones about it. We are talking about a masculine form of a healer, whether you're a man or a woman, that is predominant, which really is also talking about bringing the healing into an outer world physical manifestation. So even working with people in a physical way, body work and so forth. But it could be art easily. It could be you're a traveler and you travel the world and try out cuisines and do video blogs or something. You know, it really can be anything. But as with a sage, there is a lot of sacrifice of human, what would be considered common or societal prioritizations. So things like having an overt amount of financial security and attachment relationships. These are things that you don't partake in. And if you do, there's a strong pull within you to say, and not because, maybe I wonder if you think that that rejection to societal norms is something of interpreted as a rebellious thing, and that might affect you because I feel like, you know, you're not about being a rebel. It's about being true to you. Yeah, you can see here, this fellow, he has the formed face of a human, but the rest of him is energy and plant life and shades of different dimensions. There's kind of that chrome or black and white almost at the top and more colors at the bottom, even fall colors. So I'm seeing things like, seeing the stark contradiction that occurs not in the spiritual world, but in humans of the spiritual world, and bringing that down into that autumnal degradation, like composting in the fall, you know, to transmute that into something that I'm seeing here is anchored down into the earth. and it's the white light, right? So into something that is of a pure clarity without necessarily words, which can be tough for a mind that needs to compartmentalize and define, as is described of a Virgo. But I see here you have this capacity to do both, to have details like you see on this figure's face that resemble something to the perceiver, the human perceiver of identification. Oh, those are kind of like branches or horns and leaves. And so you present that to people, but when they get closer, they see all this other stuff that's muted and without definition, and it gets confusing. And so I can see that you're somebody who has dealt with a great deal of misinterpretation and appointed defining that it's not only the opposite of who you are, it just doesn't even come anywhere close to the reality of how vast and complex and shifting, mutable Mercury and Virgo is a mutable sign that you are. In fact, as I was I was meditating before turning on the recording. One moment. I was looking out the window, like I am now. And because the Fae are very active and present in your reading, I was instantly drawn to the images that were presenting themselves in the flora and the fauna outside my window. And crows have been around this morning, so that's for all of us. They've been talking in a certain way, and it's always an indication in this particular manner or way that they were talking of, hey, heads up, there's some old icky patterns that people in your sphere are participating in, and there's gossip in that, which is fine, right? You know who you are, you feel that, and it's strong within you, and yet you also know that you have to allow yourself to feel what's outside of your sphere. If it's something like, say, gossip and slander or negative altering interpretation of you as an individual, as a heart and a spirit. And so you know that you have to open up and let that in, because if you don't, it sits outside of you in your shield, in your sphere, and that affects your work. You're a sage, and you are cultivating the higher future aspect of you that is this, the singer of healing. And that's really what our soul eventually becomes, is something like this. Your soul desire is creating this with your higher self, future self, which is also, because time is not linear, it's also your now self working with your human me self, you self. All right, was that confusing enough? Oh, so I got off track. I was looking out at the trees and a few images came up. I saw, well, we've got the hummingbird, but there's this giant hummingbird in the tree that hangs out. It's not a real hummingbird, it's an image of it. And then there it is. There's an image of a man, a father actually, and the shape of it's like a man in a recliner, kind of kicked back a little bit, and there's a little munchkin little kid sitting on his chest, and they're smiling and they're playing, and the little one's just looking up to her dad or his dad in it's almost a look of awe, but it's more captivation. So maybe you're a dad or a mom that plays both the father and the mother role, or more the father role. that has a little one in your life. And this isn't necessarily a pet. This is somebody who maybe they're not in your life so much right now, but they are. And when they look to you, whether in the 3D world or in their imagination and in their mind, there's this awe and captivation. And why is that coming through? Yes, of course, it's a huge responsibility, and the weight of that weighs heavy on you. And yet also, it's a privilege that I'm hearing you want to embrace and make the most of. Like, I feel this yearning of you saying, I want to be engaged with this little one's captivation of me. Or maybe it's a neighbor kid even, or someone's child, that a coworker of yours child, that when they see you and maybe you talk to them for a little bit here and there, and they're just so engaged, they feel, they perceive. Our children are still so connected with the cosmos and the heavens within, so they can still feel and perceive that more readily, and they know without the words the truth of who you are, and you're opening up a remembering for them. Maybe this is even something of you working with kids. I don't know. You'll know what it is for you. But this is an image of, again, the sage, who's also the higher octaves of the patriarch, what it's meant to be. Present, engaged, strong, creating outside of themselves as they're alchemizing, or as a result of alchemizing within. And I'm being pulled back into, remember the electrons. Remember the electrons. What was it that was said about the electrons in that passage I read? It was that electrons behave in accordance to how we expect them to, and sometimes in accordance to the contradiction of what we expect them to do. And so I feel like that makes the Virgo mind just go, no, I need one or the other, or a thing. And this is where the Fae are all of a sudden coming back in, and they're like, listen, Virgo, you can make it what you make it, and maybe that's what you'll get, but sometimes you'll get something else, and we want you to have fun with that. We want you to let go of the lists, the shapes, the certainties, and we want you to let go of the uncertainties and sit back and enjoy it, play with it. And that's that figure I'm seeing coming through in the trees. He sat back in that recliner, right? And he's got the little one, like, how like a little 2-year-old or sitting on your chest, and they're poking your nose and pulling at your beard or your ears or something like that. And while it seems like they're just playing and exploring, they're also like engaged in something totally internal and deep, so deep that it's cosmic, right? The deeper we go, the more outward we go. And for those listening that identify as women, this is the masculine part of you that wants to be acknowledged and integrated, to made into a more whole, clear, honorable, and beloved masculine. And so as women, when we work with that masculine within us and create, like I was speaking yesterday in the Leo reading, or the other reading, about creating the shape of the patterning that we are, the geometrical design that we are, cultivating the shape and the intricacies of our patterns, of our symmetry and our geometry, and its extensions and contractions and movements. integrating the masculine part of us, whether a man or a woman, of course, then exemplifies and strengthens the illumination of that non-dissonant or distorted pattern, that clear, clean, more integrated, true harmonic pattern, the harmonics of a pattern, right? Like cymatics, you know, using sound to shape water or sand or things like that. We create sound within us that's inaudible simply by working with our intentions and our awareness and our presence within. And that's how we can go in, right? We can go within and work with our individual cells. We can work with the DNA to RNA, mRNA back to DNA transcriptase process by being a clear passage, holding intention. It's a whole thing, right? And when we're doing that, we're engaging more intimately and more specifically with the electrons within the DNA and the cytoplasm of the cell and the other organelles that are hanging out on that little planet that is like an inverted planet that is each and every cell in our body. It's like having a private conversation with the electrons. And of course that takes focus. That's the Virgo strength, right? Pulling in the, it's everything everywhere all at once, I don't even know, of Pisces, into what am I going to make of that? What am I going to do with that? What am I going to create with that? And boom, that's our Virgo aspect of ourselves. I know. I'm going to start within. And I'm going to hone in. And in my ability to connect with the imaginal realm, I'm going to place myself, my consciousness, in that microscopic stage where I can interact with one or two or cells, and within one cell, a DNA, and have a conversation with the electrons within the proteins that make up a DNA strand and the cytoplasm around it. I'm going to have a conversation. I'm going to sing to it with my heart. And that song sounds like the sensation within my heart that is indefinable, and in fact would lose its power from an audible sound. The sound is created at such a microscopic, even nano, not nanoparticles, like nano size. I'm seeing the electrons in a wave form and having a communication with the electrons. And the fair saying that, which she's saying that. And having a conversation with the waves in a way that starts from a place of incredible love. And it blooms. And then we engage that sensation that's happening here in this 3D realm into the imaginal realm, and a stage set and a conversation with the one cell and what's inside the cell and the DNA and the cytoplasm and the electrons involved in making up all the atoms of all those things, and really going in. And it's as if going to those very, very seemingly small particleizations and external environments and singing with the wavelengths of a small group of electrons that compose a few atoms. Just start there with a couple of electrons, maybe one, and feel that tone coming through you. And you might audibly work with it. That can be really incredibly somatic. It moves through the spinal cord and out into the viscera and more, of course, in our neural system and all the science of all the things, right? We know these things, or we don't, but we get it. creating that tonation, that frequency, tonation. I used that word recently. Creating that within our awareness, our consciousness, which is a lot of electrons and neutrons and the whole thing, right? And everything from there, and then fractaling within. Wow, we are really tangent. There are a lot of tangents today. What a fun reading. I do love it when the Fae come in like this. Okay. I think we're gonna just stop there because I was enjoying the universe grand and minute rabbit hole in all the directions, and I think that's enough. Let's see if the Fae want to have anything more to say. Ooh, we got another singer. There aren't very many singer cards in this. I think I counted something like 7 at some point. I don't remember for sure, but it's only a handful of, I don't know, 60 some cards in this deck. And to get 2 singers is such a beautiful message of this is really important for you to hear and receive and transmute. And because here you got the singer of transfiguration. Beautiful you are. Look at your fire. Oh my goodness. I feel like I can see your face coming through there. Okay. Take a little screenshot of that if you like. And then work with those energies. The codes that are coming through there. That is the correlate. You can see there's 4 being shown here, starting about here. Bloop, 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 bloop. So basically throat, heart, the juncture between heart chakra and solar plexus, and then the juncture between solar plexus and sacral plexus. Boy, words don't when I'm trying to do it. They don't always work. This is also card 11, so do with that what you will. All the singers are divine, cosmic illustrations of an aspect of your future self, which I'm hearing is this image and the other one, the singers of transfiguration and the singer of healing. There is a combination, a collaboration, an integration, lots of shuns, that would like to be integrated or at least observed. You can put it outside of yourself and observe how that would look and how that would be and what it would feel. And I think that's the trick. That's the trick with electrons. Okay, so now I get it. So the Fae are swooping in again and they're like, okay, so there you got it. Yes, electrons do behave same or contradictory as to what we expect to see them to do. That's our mind working, they're pointing out. Remember, those are the mentalings, and mentalings are not to be trusted. But what is pure, what can be pure, is the cultivation of cleansing the heart space and connecting our heart space as a portal to the heart of the cosmos, the pure love of the cosmos. And so when we drop from our minds, thank you, everybody, thank you, Faye. When we drop from our minds and we go into that heart space, as I've talked about so many times, you guys know, and we do the work to clear out distortions, to smooth out the lines, to expand the expansions and contract the contractions. And we do that anchored in and with the connection of the purity of the cosmic love, cosmic heart, which is all the things, distortions and everything together to create the wholeness of everything, right? Which can only always be whole because it's all the things. Anyway, oh, the rabbit holes today. Point being, going into that heart space, clearing the mind, emptying it, and dropping the conscious awareness into that, and then working from that place. That is the work of connecting with electrons in a way that signals to them, how about you shape yourself in accordance with what's going on here. So there's an intention, say, of, let's say you want a horse, and you want a horse ranch, and maybe you even want to have a horse ranch, an equine healing ranch facility, right? You want to work, there's a real altruism to it. And so you start doing the work of connecting with your heart space and having that pure intention, but your mind keeps interfering and coming into play. And with that come all the psychic influences of the collective. You can't, or you shouldn't, or it's expensive, or that's dumb, or you need to be doing something else, or all the things, right, that can come in. And whether you're perceiving them or not, they're there. And until all these shapes have been put into place to let all those in, shake that up, and bring the vibration of your patterning and your mental construct into clearing that, alchemizing it, and then utilizing it, releasing what's left. Those distortions from the collective consciousness, but a consciousness that is more determined by cognitive and cerebral processes, mental, then it's going, as long as that's happening, it's going to affect even the most pure heart intention and connection. Because as soon as we go from that cosmic heart portal connection into the physical realm, now we're dealing with all of the mental constructs, the thought forms. And so this is a message about strengthening that the design of your brain's thinking, cognition, so much so that when those exterior thought forms of people or just out there start influencing, you don't have to push them out, and you don't have to be bogged down by them coming in. Now it's a process. So at first, and for a time, sometimes quite a time of time, it takes a while to strengthen that cognitive power. Power, yes. And the ability to just instantly do it. And, okay, I'm being stopped. And that. Sometimes I'll just get going and it's like, and that's plenty. That's exactly what we wanted you to say. So let's bring it in. And then there's one more card that wants to be pulled. So these are the two. Singers, aspects of your future self's formation, a future self that wants to integrate and become more than what it has been. It wants to have more complexity, intricacy, and detail. And so you, the sage, are boots on the ground, quite literally, doing the work. And your higher self, of course, is working with you in doing that. So let's go to, there's one other thing. Interesting. Also, of course, I have in the diffuser, I decided to put in the diffuser today an oil that I've been working with on and off for a few weeks, very deliberately, with a couple of others. But I don't know if you can see it. We'll see if it comes through. There it goes. It's called transformation. And I can't remember all the ingredients. I know rose, Damascus rose is in it. And myrrh, I believe, is in it as well. Anyways, transfiguration, transformation, transmutation, and then witnessing the exterior as if witnessing the electrons from a heart-centered focal consciousness. Okay, so I think we're getting that. It's a lot, and I know it's funny because I'll do these messages and all this stuff will come out, and I think that it's meaning one thing, and then afterwards for the next several hours I'll get all these other layers of how much more everything that was said through me means. And I'm like, oh, I hope that the people that listened got those messages or whatever was meant for them too, because when we speak, right, we limit the truths. And also just being on camera. Oh, I love this. Okay, so this is from the Beyond Lemuria deck. And you know, it's funny, I expected one of the big patterns of geometry to come through on this. And today is freedom. So this is your key. All of a sudden the dragon is becoming a key. I don't know if you can see that shaping itself through, but this is your key to your liberation, which in truth is really your formation, your greater formation, both that human sage, the sage self that's boots on the ground, and that can look like something that is societally maybe less appealing, right? We don't see this guy on the cover of GQ magazine. I don't even know if that's still around anymore. Posing, you know, as some sort of appealment to the eyes. We see that guy as, or woman, as the crone, the sage, the elder man or woman who's just got twigs in their hair, and they've been through it. They've been run over and back again by the cosmos so many times that their physical form is just a mess. And boy, sometimes there's no better way to physically demonstrate how incredibly beautiful and powerful and dynamic you are at the soul level by having your physical form be kind of all over the place. So that's your key to freedom. Wow, what a reading, you guys. I think that's it. Okay, I love you so much, and I'm so grateful for you being here. Thank you for the likes and subscribes. If you feel like it, comment, share a little bit about what you got from this or what you're working with. I'd love to hear from you. I do read each and every one. And thank you for supporting this channel and the messages that come through me as my creative expression. Much love to you all. Blessings.